Baleka sisi. Run! Ezinye izinto asifuni ingxoxo, asifuni idolo. Baleka qha. Jonga guys, I've even made notes. Like, this is how serious this is.
Tell me now, tell me something, 'cause I don't know how this gonna end. Oh no.
Hi ladies, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the very first episode of GirlTalk Sundays. My name is Zizi. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are a returning subscriber and get one girl, I acknowledge you. So I decided to start a series called GirlTalk Sundays, and here I'll basically be talking on typical topics that I would discuss with like my girlfriends, and I'd really love these to be like a conversation between us. I'm going to be covering topics like love and relationships, matters of the heart, faith, work, finances, personal finances, relationships with like our friends and our sisters. So if this is something that you are kind of interested in, please do come around every single Sunday. I'm going to be posting a video, and I'm going to try kind of keep the same topic for a couple of weeks, just so that it can also be a conversation instead of me just talking at you. So I'd really love your engagement, and yeah. But for today, the topic that I'm going to be discussing is the types of men that you ought to avoid. When I was a teenager, which is, you know, typically when people start dating, I wish I kind of had like a bigger sister or like an older friend who would have told me to kind of avoid these types of guys and to stay away from them, because the first one is actually a pretty serious one, and this is abusive men. So this can be a man that's physically abusive, a man that is emotionally or psychologically abusive, and even a man that's financially abusive. I know that this one is very much easier said than done, and that people's circumstances are very, very different. But I just want you to know, Mdase, that if this is something that's currently happening to you in your life, sis, I just want to say first and foremost that I'm sorry. And I want you to know and to rest assured that it's not your fault and you don't deserve it. And I also want you to know that you have options and you do have agency. I know that's much more easier said than done, but I really, really urge you to get help, be it from the authorities, from family members, from friends that you can rely on and trust, but please, please get help. But if you are in a situation where you're kind of still in the exploring phase with a guy and you guys say aren't living together or aren't married, please take signs of abuse very, very seriously. If a man is aggressive with you, even if he's not necessarily aggressive at you, but if, for example, when you guys get into arguments, he does things like punch a wall or start screaming and shouting, please recognize that those are actual signs of abuse. Evaluate, for example, the way that he treats waiters when you guys go out. Another way to kind of get a man's perspective on abuse is to kind of talk to him about some women, for example, that you know who have been abused before, and kind of explain the whole circumstance around those abusive situations and try to get exactly what are his thoughts on that. You know, how does he feel? How does he react when you speak about women to him who have been abused or men who are abusers? You know, does he tend to kind of shift the blame? Does he tend to try and find excuses for men that abuse other women? You know, evaluate those things, because that's very, very important, and try your very best to not ignore those signs. The second type of dusty to avoid is a man who does not take care of his children. So personally, I don't write men off for having children. I do think that it's very possible for you to build a relationship and perhaps even a marriage with a man who has a child, like a child from a previous relationship. So I'm not one to write those people off. I do think, though, I kind of need to understand the context under which that child came about, and I'd have to ask a lot of questions before I'd, you know, be willing to get into a relationship with a man who has kids. So I'd want to know why you're not with that woman, what happened between the two of you. 3, I want to know why you decided not to be with her even though she was the mother of your children, you know. And 4, what are your plans going forward? You know, how are you going to make sure that this is something that never ever happens again, you having a child with a woman that's not your wife? How are you going to deal with the dynamics going forward? For example, if we build a relationship and we marry, how are you going to manage the situation? Because this is your child and this is someone that's going to be a part of our lives for the rest of our lives, you know. So I think I'd have a lot of questions, but I wouldn't necessarily write a man off just because they have a child, you know. But yeah, anyways, going back to the topic, ladies, stay away from men who do not take care of their children. And this is both in the financial sense, so men who don't provide for their children, and 2, men who don't parent their children. And to be honest, I really believe that, like, you know, ukondla umntana and to raise a child goes so far beyond, you know, providing for them financially. You have to actually parent your child. You have to teach, especially whether it's a girl or it's a boy, you know. As a father, I think it's very, very important to be present in your child's life. And if you are not present in your child's life, that's a huge red flag for me. And sometimes men will kind of give the excuse of, oh no, but his mom does this and this and this, and she's such a bad person and she's crazy and she won't let me see my child, which actually does happen. You know what I mean? I've seen circumstances where things like that do happen, where a mom is very like vindictive and will keep a child away from their father. But that's why we have the court systems. And if you want to fight for your child, you will fight for your child. And granted, the justice system, when it comes to issues of custody, does favor the mother. I completely know that and I completely understand that. However, the court system would never allow a mother to keep a child away from their father unless that father is like abusive or toxic in some way or fashion. Right? So ladies, stay away from men who don't provide for their children and men who don't parent their children. And I know that some of us as women, you know, we think we're so special and we think to ourselves, no, you know what, he's not going to do this to my children. If ever we get married and we have children, he'll take care of my children, he'll provide for my children, which possibly he will, right? But the thing is, but think about it, ne? If that man is providing for your children because he's married to you, but he's not providing for his children that he had with another woman before you guys got married, that man is self-serving. You know what I mean? He's only providing for those children because you're watching and because you would hold him accountable to it and because it kind of makes him feel good and feeds his ego. You know what I mean? So he's a very self-serving man. It means that if a child or a family isn't serving him, then he's not going to kind of do what he needs to do for onhle umntanakhe. So ladies, please run. When you see a man who does not provide for his child that he had with another woman, run. And I think another issue up with this is that, you know, he might kind of provide for the kids that you guys have together, but then what happens if you guys break up? What happens? What happens if you guys break up or your marriage ends? Will he provide for your children then? You know what I mean? If he's failing to provide for those children or that child that he has, what makes you think he'll provide for your children if things ever go badly between the two of you? So the third type of dusty man to stay away from is one who is married or in a relationship with somebody else. And guys, like, you would think that this kind of goes without saying, but you'd be surprised. So I have had like so many circumstances. In fact, I had a situation earlier this week where I was getting groceries at Pick and Pay. And I was going down this aisle and I walked past this family. They were a beautiful family. So I just walked past them. Dugu, you know, man, jiggy aisle. On the other side, Nangu Putu, we and approach. Literally, guys, the same man that I just saw walking with his wife and his 2 toddler sons was literally walking up to me. And then at first, like, I didn't think that he was, you know, walking up to me. So I just went on with my shopping. And then he literally walked up to me, guys, and he said it with his chest. Yes, amadoda ayazenza is manga. Guys, he said it with his chest. And he was like, yo, sisi, yazi ngihleka kanjani manje, hayi bengikubonile kula cala, you know, ndicela inamba yakho. Guys, I could not believe it. I think my neighbor's watching me for my video. And I know that some of us might think that, like, you know, flirting with or like entertaining married men is a joke. Or is not that big of a deal. And some of us might even say, no, but he's the one who owes his wife loyalty. You know, you as a woman or as a young girl, you don't owe his wife any loyalty. And you, in fact, you're probably right. You know, you don't owe that woman any loyalty. You don't know who that woman is. But the Lord will hold you accountable. The Lord will hold you accountable. The Lord takes marriage very, very seriously. And secondly, like, a lot of the time, at least like this is the case for me, when I choose to kind of entertain a man or to kind of be in a relationship with a man, I don't do it for fun and for entertainment. You know, I do it because I'm looking for a life partner. I'm looking for someone who can commit to me and I can commit to them. And so if you're looking for a life partner, character should be important. What type of character are you accepting from a man who's willing to approach you, even though he's in a relationship or a marriage? What type of man is that? Is that a man that you would want for yourself? Moving on. Okay, and then the fourth type of man that I would definitely advise my younger self to avoid is a man who doesn't want Christ. And there are many reasons for this, right? One is because I'm personally a Christian, and so it's very important for me to kind of be with a man who has a similar worldview to what I have, who kind of has a similar view of marriage and relationships and the world and faith and death and life that I have. So somebody who kind of like denies Christ and refuses a relationship with Christ, it's very unlikely that him and I are going to be able to see eye to eye on a lot of things. But besides that, another reason why I would, you know, advise a young Christian woman to kind of avoid a man who doesn't want Christ is because being a man is a very difficult thing. And the standard of masculinity which scripture provides is often something that a lot of men, if not all men, are not really able to live up to. You know, scripture literally commands that a man ought to love his wife the way that Christ has loved the church, and he ought to lay down his life for her well-being. You know, he ought to protect and provide and profess his affections towards her. And that's a very big deal. You know what I mean? Human beings, whether male or female, we are not wired to kind of like, in our natural, I guess, sinful state as human beings, we don't want to lay down our lives. You know what I mean? So if this man does not have a heart that is convicted by scripture and if this man is not someone who is chasing after the heart of Christ, what is going to motivate him to lay down his life for you? What? You know, what's going to motivate him to continuously work, no matter how difficult and how hard, to protect and provide and profess his love for you and your children? You know, what's going to motivate him to do that? And you know, sometimes we might think, oh, the love that he has for me, that will be enough to inspire him to love and to protect and to provide for the rest of my life. Sissy, you are going to disappoint that man. There is going to be many a times where you will not inspire him, either because of your own sin, either because you yourself fall short, either because sometimes he just is not going to understand you. And I'm not saying Uguti, like a man who chases after the heart of Christ is perfect. He's not. He's definitely not, and he will never be. But at least then you can depend on Christ's conviction. You can depend on the fact that the Lord will continuously convict his heart and hold him accountable. It is only in the Lord that you can trust. And then the fifth guy I would say totally stay away from, sis, is a man who doesn't want you. And I know this one is a little bit tricky, but a lot of the time we kind of know, you kind of know, sis, when a man doesn't want you, right? For example, I was in a relationship when I was in my early 20s. I was in a relationship with a guy who just never wanted to spend time with me, and thinking back to it now, like it's so bizarre that uzongishela but kahle ongifuni, but anyways, I was in a relationship with this guy when I was in my early 20s who in summary just didn't want me. His behavior, the way that he would speak to me, just communicated ukuthi le ndoda ayindifuni. Literally sometimes I'd be in the area where he lives, and I'd text him and be like, hey babe, I'm in your area, please can we meet up for lunch, I miss you, right? And then either he would completely ignore my texts and my calls, or he'd be like, I'm busy. So he'd tell me he can't even find 30 minutes in his day, 15 minutes to just go have a coffee with me. He couldn't find time. Secondly, he never wanted me to call him. Sometimes like I'd have to literally plan 3 business days in advance because he just didn't want to talk to me. At times I'd build up the courage and pick up the phone. And then he'd hit me with a, did I not talk to you yesterday? Guys, like, why and he communicated it very explicitly with his actions. And I remember I tell my friends, like, I haven't spoken to my boyfriend in like a week, or I haven't spoken to my boyfriend in like 10 days. And they would look at me like, what do you mean? They would tell me they speak to 2 boyfriends every day, and I'd be like, hey man, hey bo, guys, like every day, not guys. Like I literally used to think my friends were lying to me when they would tell me they were speaking to their boyfriends every single day. And no, I'm not saying like compare your relationship with the relationships of your friends, right? But just know there's some behavior that's actually not okay. And somebody just refusing to see you, refusing to talk to you, refusing to spend time with you continuously is somebody who actually probably doesn't want you. Especially in like the information age that we live in. You know what I mean? Like we're not living in World War I. He's not in Europe fighting in the war. You know what I mean? Where you have to send him letters and wait 6 months for a response. No. We have WhatsApp, we have calls, we have cell phones, we have Skype, we have computers, we have FaceTime. Like there's too many modes of communication, for him to still not want to have contact with you. He just doesn't want to have contact with you. And Yazim does him. If a man doesn't want you, it's okay. Look at the signs. Look at his behavior. Don't take his word for it. Look at his behavior. Chongasana, I had to get tea. For this one. The 6th type of dusty that you absolutely have to stay away from is a man who doesn't want to work and a man who loves off of you. There are like relationships where a guy moves in with his girlfriend, right, into her property, and she continues to cover all of the expenses, right? She pays the rent or the bond, she pays the utilities, she pays the levies, she buys the groceries, she pays for the car, for the insurance, like everything that is needed in order to keep that household running, she pays for it. And that guy pays absolutely diddly squat. Guys, like, this happens today. I wasn't going to be able. I think it's different if, let's say, you're in a relationship like that, or in fact, even a marriage, more importantly, and your husband, for example, needs to go back to school, right? Or he's like temporarily unemployed, right? Or he's gone to business school to get an MBA so that he can get a promotion at work. Yeah, but that's different, ne? But if there's absolutely no reason and there's absolutely no plan for why a man is not working and he's not even trying to change that, darling, evaluate the situation. And the sad thing is, guys, like, the guys who are these like loafers, they kind of take their girlfriends as suckers. You know what I mean? The way that they talk about their girlfriends to their friends, or, you know, to other women, because they know they know that they're making a fool out of this girl. And the unfortunate thing is that, like, she's just not aware. So ladies, please protect your space and protect your resources. And don't let a man who doesn't have a heart to provide, you know, into your house. Don't do that. Don't do that. The seventh Dusty is a man who doesn't care about your safety. I'm someone who personally thinks that it's very, very, very important that a man go out of his way to protect me. You know, if I am the object of your affection, I believe that it is your responsibility to consistently ensure my safety. So ladies, that's a very, very, very big red flag. A man who doesn't care for your safety and who just kind of expects you to figure out your own way, and who doesn't actually care about, are you home safely, are you protected, is a red flag. The eighth Dusty to stay away from is a man who refuses to define what it is that you guys are doing. Yeah! And guys, like, this is a big deal. And you'd be so surprised at like how common this is, where men will kind of like take women out and spend time with them, even hold time. Guys, a man will even like try to sleep with you, you know, without ever defining what this is, you know. And I remember when I was younger, and I was kind of like, you know, vibing with a guy, liking a guy, spending time with a guy, and then I'd ask him about, you know, it's been 3 months, like, what are we doing, you know? And he'd hit me with a, no, like, you know, I'm what's under my label. As funny dolo, baleka ka. Guys, baleka sisi, run sisi, don't settle for that, you know what I mean? And in like him, that guys, is that I need to know your intentions, you know. I need to know, what are we doing right now, you know? What are we going to be doing in 2 years time? What are we going to be doing in 10 years time? And I'm not saying to like expect a man to make huge commitments to you, you know, especially like in the early stages of a relationship. But I think at every point in a relationship, a man has to define for you explicitly, with his mouth, with his chest, guess fuba, you know. He has to define what it is that you guys are doing. Otherwise, sister, you're kicking rocks. Don't ever make the assumption, no matter how long you've been vibing, no matter how long you've been talking or whispering, I'm not sweet nothings with a man, no matter how many dates he's paid for, don't assume you guys are together. Don't assume anything until a man has said explicitly with his chest that mna baby funa wena, and you and I, we go together. Don't assume you guys go together until he has said it with his mouth that you go together. And then the ninth type of Dusty to avoid is a man who doesn't respect your boundaries. If he's trying to guilt trip you into breaking your boundaries, or trying to manipulate you out of your boundaries, you don't deserve that. That just shows Uti, that man does not respect you. One way, for example, that a man can kind of like disrespect your boundaries is if, let's say you've chosen to not be sexually active and then he just goes and sleeps with someone else. But just know, sis, that you don't have to tolerate that. You don't have to accept a man who's going to disrespect your boundaries, because if he's able to disrespect boundaries right now while you guys are dating, what's going to happen in the long term? What other types of boundaries is he going to be willing to break? And then the very last dusty to stay away from is a man who doesn't value women. And sis, a man who values you and respects you but disrespects and devalues other women is not a man who respects women. Choose for yourself a man who honors and respects women, and a man who will treat you like you're the prize. And as shocking as it might sound, there are men in this world who hate women, either because of like the mommy issues that they have, or because of past hurts, or because of the toxic traits of patriarchy that they've kind of like inherited from other men, or just because in jail they're awful people and they're sinful, but there are men in this world who genuinely hate women, or who genuinely like devalue and undermine the value of women and disrespect women. And these men are sometimes even in our families. They are our neighbors, they are our brothers, they are our colleagues, and sometimes they're actually our partners, but listen, sis, that's not something that you have to tolerate. Listen to the way that your man talks about other women. Listen to the way that he talks about his mom, for example. So yeah, guys, those are the top 10 dusties that I would absolutely advise that you stay as far away from. Please comment in the comment section below if you've ever had encounters with any types of these guys, or if I've missed any types of dusties that you would tell your younger self to kind of stay away from. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please do tune in next week Sunday for another video of Girl Talk Sundays. Till next time, bye.